This video is to go over to summarize investigation 5B. So the keywords are the base case, linear function, and recursive rules. And key questions are: how do you find a function that matches the table in the recursively, and also closed form? And what's the recursive rule? How can you use recursion to define function? And then what is the recursive rule for the value in the table? So point one is the delta column. Many of you are really good at it. So for example, it says copy and complete each table. Find a function that produces each table. So the delta is 3. So that means in order to find this one, that's 3 more than that, because this plus that is that. So that should be 17. In order to find the previous one from here, that means this plus 3 is 14. Therefore, this is 11. Finding the delta is you just look at these two, and you don't really look for patterns, but delta is the difference. That means difference is the answer for subtraction. So it goes down by 3 by adding negative 3. So it's negative 3. So the delta is right here is negative 3, you know. So that yeah. And then the second point is the recursive rule. And for example, it says make a table for each recursive rule. Use the integer input from 0 to 5. Which table can you generate using a linear function? So for example, if 0 is the input, then output is 3. So this is the input and this is the output. To get the new output, take the previous output and subtract 2. So subtract 2. So the next one is 1, and it just keeps going down by 2, and so on and so forth. So you're supposed to do 0 to 5, but you know what I'm doing. And find the function from a table. How do you find a function that matches a table? So let's say we have some kind of table like that, and here's n, f of n. Let's see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's say we have 9, 11, 13, 15, and 17. So the delta is just 2. And how do you write that? The rules, right? So if you remember how to write x maps to, in one way is x maps to, and another way is f of x equals, and also we have it's f of n. Well, f of n. F of n equals, also we can write it in recursively. So x maps to, so you look at the output of 0, which is 9, and then you add whatever the slope or the delta times the input, which is n. So you can just simply write f of n, which represents the output, and you just can put 2n plus 9. You can put 9 plus 2n, but by convention, you usually write the n or variables first. So how do you write the recursively, right? So you look at the first one, the starting one. So you have two columns, 1 and 2. That's why we have this squiggly thing. And the base case, you gotta look at the base case. Base case is the pair of starting number, the top row. So it is 9 if n equals 0. And then now you're going to look at the pattern of these two outputs. What is happening here, right? So what I need to get to the new input, you take the previous one and then add 2, right? So if you want to see this one, if you want to find out what comes next after n equals 4, well, what would be n equals 5? That would be 19. How would you get 19? Well, you take the previous one and then you add 2 to it, right? So how do you write the previous, right? Previous output. Previous output, you use f of n minus 1. Okay? So f of n is the new output. right? And if you just look at it, if you want to find out f of 5, you look at f of 4, and then you add 2 to it. And if you compare this one and this is always 1 less than, right? 1 less than whatever you have. So it's 1 less than whatever you have, which is this one. So you're going to write f of n minus 1 plus 2 if n is greater than 0. Okay? So what I want you to do is, these are the problem. Explain how to find a function that matches a table. So if you have a table like that, you know, how do you find a function that matches the table? So that's what I just did here. So we have 3 ways of writing the function. How do you write these? You can make your own table and explain it, or you can just simply explain it in English. What's a recursive rule? What is a recursive rule? How does it look like? Well, it looks like this, right? It looks like this. But what do you have for the first row, and what do you have for the second row, and what does these means? Okay? So I want you to be able to explain that. So please explain. And then what is the recursive rule for the value in the table? So find the recursive rule for this table. Be careful, the first one is the base case is not 0, so you should have right here, you should have n equals -1, because you have right here, right? So the base, this should be here instead of 9, and then n equals this one, right? And then find a pattern and write it like this. What you need to do to get the new one using the previous one, right? So, okay, so this is what I want you to do, and I want you to type. I want you to click turn in button on Edmodo and then turn in. And you don't have to write it in Word or anything. You just simply type directly. Okay?